There are urban legends and myths everywhere. Just about everything has a story, but Russia's secretive Soviet past has become the perfect breeding ground for tall tales, above all else. So today on Top 5 Scary Videos, I'm going to be counting down our list of the top 5 scary Russian urban legends. Before we begin, be sure to stick around until the end of the video where I'll be responding to some of your comments. Let's jump in. In at 5, The Collector. The Collector is a really catch-all legend for creepy hermetic neighbors that might be doing something strange in their basements. However, the most common legend is that of the neighbor who collects human body parts and proudly displays them in mason jars around their home. However, this legend has some real-world roots, unlike the rest of our list. Back in 2011, Russian police arrested a man described by the media as a cemetery collector for digging up 29 corpses and dressing the remains in female clothing to display around his home. This is an absolutely horrifying legend that became even more sickening after this event came to large. You may never know who your neighbor is or what they're doing after hours. Just don't go to their basement if they invite you inside. In at 4, The Black Bird of Chernobyl. Now this legend garnered traction on the internet, of course, and focuses on a creature that is allegedly seen in Ukraine around the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, specifically in the weeks leading up to the disaster on April 26, 1986. Now its description is very similar to that of the Mothman and is humanoid in appearance and was presumed to have been black or dark grey in colour. It was also claimed by witnesses that it possessed wings and glowing red eyes. The black bird was spotted by several workers before they passed away, with some theorising that the bird was serving as an omen of doom, warning the workers of the lethal radiation within the plant. Not only that, some of the survivors shortly before the nuclear meltdown began to experience weird goings on, including nightmares, threatening phone calls, and encounters with the winged beast. Following the disaster, and as the Soviet helicopters arrived, circling the smouldering plant, dropping clay, sand, lead, and other extinguishing chemicals on top of the flame, some of the workers claimed to have witnessed a 20-foot bird gliding through the undulating tentacles of irradiated smoke, which was spewing from the reactor. Frightening. In at 3, The Curse of the Ivan Vasily. Ivan Vasily is perhaps one of the most terrifying and shocking urban legends that is actually true and exists in the Russian history books. Now, the ship was built in 1897 as a transport freight across the Baltic Sea to the Gulf of Finland and driven by a single triple expansion steam engine. This ship was reliable, stable, and nothing unusual happened for the first 5 years it was on the sea. Then, one night changed everything. In 1903, the Russian government was preparing for war with Japan. So the freighter's role changed drastically overnight and the ship was ordered to carry cargo of war materials to Russian warships. The ship was first sent to the west coast of Africa to get coal, and after they stocked up, the crew noticed a change on the ship. Something wasn't quite right. However, they continued and set sail across the Indian Ocean. Now, the uneasiness that the crew was feeling was as if there was an invisible entity on the ship, as if someone was watching them, and the atmosphere just felt wrong or negative. The crew were visibly scared. Then one night a man on the ship saw an apparition, a ghostly figure that was glowing with an odd mist, walking across the deck before disappearing behind a lifeboat. Of course, the sightings only made things worse for the crew, who were now on high alert. Just a few nights later, another crew member let out a terrifying scream, sending everyone into a panic. Then men went crazy and began to fight each other until one of them jumped into the ocean to his death. The crew had absolutely no idea what they were doing. A couple nights later, the crew just out of nowhere started to fight yet again, and another man jumped overboard to his death. The crew felt like they were being possessed by an unseen force. Once the ship finally docked, most of the crew abandoned the ship, and new crew were hired to handle the cargo. While out on the seas, the same thing began to happen, resulting in 2 people dying on the journey, including the captain, who flung himself overboard. This went on for some time until the crew finally realized the only way to deal with it was to burn the ship down. The sailors gathered in tugboats and watched on as the ship went down in flames. Coming in at number 2, The Well to Hell. The Well to Hell is a legend about a putative borehole in Russia which was reportedly drilled so deep that it broke through to hell itself. The legend holds that a team of Russian engineers in an unnamed place in Siberia had drilled a hole that was 14.4 kilometers deep, before breaking through to a cavity. The researchers were of course intrigued by the discovery and lowered an extremely heat-tolerant microphone into the well. The temperature was reportedly 1,832 Fahrenheit, and the chamber was filled with flames. Screams began to be picked up on the microphone, tormented screams that were begging for help. However, the recording was later found to be looped together from various sound effects. Now, in reality, the Soviet Union had drilled a hole more than 12 kilometers deep in the Kola super deep borehole, located not in Siberia but on the Kola Peninsula. Upon reaching the depths of 12,262 meters in 1989, interesting geological anomalies were found, but nothing supernatural and definitely not the well to hell. And finally, coming in at number 1, the Russian sleep experiment. This is perhaps one of the greatest urban legends of not just Russia but of all time. It's simply known as the Russian sleep experiment, and according to the legend, researchers in the 1940s took 5 prison inmates and locked them in an airtight chamber with a special gas to keep them awake. This was so they could see the effects of prolonged sleep deprivation and promised the subjects their freedom if they could go 30 days without sleep. The results were of course absolutely horrific. On the 5th day, paranoia began to set in and the prisoners stopped talking to each other. On the 9th day, a few of them began screaming relentlessly, while others tore apart the books they were given, smeared them with feces and blocked off the one-way mirror so they couldn't be seen. Then, out of nowhere, the screaming stopped. 3 days went by without sound from inside the chamber. The researchers tried to address them via the intercom, stating that they were coming in and for the prisoners to lie flat on the floor. Then one of the voices answered, "We no longer want to be freed." After 15 days, the researchers finally opened the door, and the sight was apparently horrific. One of the prisoners was dead and completely torn to shreds, with chunks of him stuffed into the floor drain. The other 4 prisoners had mutilated themselves to the brink of death and were terrified at the thought of going to sleep and begged to stay inside the chamber. They were forcibly removed, and when surgeons tried to fix the damage they had inflicted on themselves, they resisted so strongly that they couldn't be sedated. They laughed as they were sewn back together, fully awake and aware. Eventually, after enough demanding, they were returned back to the chamber, after the head researcher told his team to lock them back in. However, one member of the team resisted, shot the head researcher and then shot one of the 2 remaining prisoners. Before killing the last prisoner, he asked just one thing: "What are you?" The prisoner responded, "Have you forgotten so easily? We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you all, begging to be free at every moment in your deepest animal mind. We are what you hide from in your beds every night. We are what you sedate into silence and paralysis when you go to the nocturnal haven where we cannot tread." After this, the researchers shot the prisoner in the heart. Well, there we have it. Do you guys agree with our list? Were there any Russian legends that we missed? Leave us all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below, and perhaps we can do a part 2. Before I go though, I just want to respond to a few comments from one of our last videos. Top 5 scary cursed games you should never play. Bezo1225 said there are more instructions for these games than an IKEA cabinet. Ain't that the truth? Now imagine having to film that video twice. That was my reality. Isis Blackfeather said, "Do you have a summer cold? I do, it's the worst, and you seemed a bit stuffy, so feel better." Actually, I'm recovering from a 5-day bender in Vegas. You may think I'm joking, but I'm not. There's no cold, just alcohol. Carlo Crisanto said, "I have a game where you can summon Lucy. You face a mirror at midnight and chant Lucy McPhee. Lucy McPhee, your blue eyes enchant me. Your accent hypnotizes me. On a count of 3, come and find me. If Lucy finds you, you'll be possessed by her and have glowing blue eyes and an accent. Have fun playing." Wow. What to say really, other than you should all definitely be playing this game. I'll definitely possess you all. Have fun. And on that fun note, if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another scary vid. And until next time, see you later.